I suppose a good way to start the conversation is, how's life?
Life is exciting,
Okay.
challenging. There's lots on the go, and so one needs to be very clear about what they want to be doing when that is happening.
Okay. Listen, you're coming off a quite illustrious and stellar year in 2019. I mean, the book coming out, you've been all over television, so much excitement about you, such a presence in the year. Your share of voice has really been large in the airwaves and on digital media. How was that year for you?
It's actually interesting. 2019 was, like you say, an exciting year. There's lots going on. And if we look at share of voice, then I would say, it was a good year.
Yeah.
But it was probably the most challenging year for me. As life would have it, there's some good moments and there's some really challenging moments.
Sure.
And I think in reflecting back, I do think that it was one of those defining years for me in terms of being able to manage some of the most difficult challenges, but also celebrating some of the good things.
Sure.
And what's interesting is that most of the time when that's happening, you almost downplay some of the good things that you do.
It's a bad habit.
It's a bad habit. It's such a bad habit.
Life,
Exactly. And, you almost dramatize some of the challenges. But on the whole, it was a phenomenal year. I grew incredibly as an entrepreneur.
Sure.
And I think my shoulders have been strengthened.
Okay.
And I do feel that I'm better off for it.
Sure. Listen, by and large, when I think Sylvester, and I shop around to ask what people think, there's this common denominator of he's just an energetic, passionate individual. Half the time I'm like, are you always like that?
It's actually interesting because when I look back, in fact, I was looking at a picture of me on my 12th year birthday. And when I come back from holiday this year, my team did a surprise party as a throwback to that 12th year birthday, which was quite amazing.
Nice.
And I looked at that picture and I actually think, wow, I've always been this, this individual with a lot of energy and passion for life.
Yes.
And I think, I must say, now as a grown man, I do think that a lot of it has to do with just the sense of gratitude that I have for my life and for the opportunities that have been given to me and for some of the experiences that I've had. So I feel grateful and I feel joyful for those moments. And I think naturally for me, my go-to place, whether I'm sad or going through a challenging time, is to smile it off or laugh it off, which is quite weird, right? But it's almost like a comfort zone for me because, life is effervescent and there's a lot to be celebrated, and I grew up focusing a lot on that, and it feels like me.
It must be because I think back just on the eve of DNA starting out, we had a sit-down conversation, and I remember thinking you were so optimistic, you were so eager to get the business going. It was almost happening as you were speaking it, and I must say, here you are in your 8th year now, going strong, right? Do you look back and think, sure, I always had a plan?
No, of course not. In fact, I always talk about being cautiously optimistic. There's that element of, because there has to be a balance, right? You have to be optimistic, but also you have to be honest and realistic about the situation. And I think the balance of the two, for me, gives me a sense of the fact that this is really going well and I'm excited about this, but also there are things that could be challenging and just be ready for them. And also, as a result of that, I'm also very confident and comfortable that even though things aren't working out, I'm still going to be happy and I'm still going to be joyful for the things that are working out. And I think that helps me to almost not be surprised by challenges that I do face. And I find that I'm able to manage the difficult moments, balancing it out with just my authentic self of just being happy and being joyful about my life and what I think of it.
I got you.
It's special. It's special.
It's unique, and it clearly works for you. And this is the thing that's, I suppose I want to double down on. It's yes, you were very optimistic. You had this vision for a business. The road hasn't been straight. That I know for sure. It never is. But But what do you credit the staying power? I mean, as a business person, because you didn't run a business before. This is your first venture.
This is my first venture.
So what kind of things, from a business perspective, were like early difficulties that you had to contend with?
It's actually, if you've spoken to me about this question at the initial stages, I think I would have a different answer than I have now.
Okay.
Because in retrospect, the beginning stages were challenging, granted, but there was so much fun.
Okay.
You know?
You were on a high.
I was on a high.
Yeah.
And in retrospect, I find that those times were easier than now.
As in, success is harder?
I think just as the business grows, you know, there's a shift, you know, that takes place, and there's certain elements that need to be looked at differently than when you start, you know. And I think that as part of learning and growing as an entrepreneur, I've had to learn so many different skill sets as I grew, you know, the business. But I must say, I think what keeps me in line or on track is just the fact that at one point I didn't have a business, and I wasn't, you know, I wasn't sure what it is that it was going to become necessarily. Yeah. But now that I do, I'm even more excited and thrilled for it. So there's an appreciation for what is here and what is here now.
Yeah. Look, in all of this, though, let's not take away. I think I've also had I'm looking from outside, you know, in this business, constantly tracking what's going on. And in your particular case, there are some really basic fundamentals that you seem to have had a handle on, which are often pitfalls for many new businesses. Managing cash flow, growing a client book, delivering, consistency, keeping employment, growing the brand. Those are not child's play in a world that looks so easy, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I must accredit that to the experiences that I've had.
Okay.
And I think I'll even start off from growing up. I grew up in Soweto. I grew up frustrated, and I wasn't really happy about my life, where it was, and I thought that I deserved better, like many of us do.
Thank goodness.
And I was quite challenged, you know, as a young man, because I just knew that I needed to break out. I needed to do something different for the sake of my family, and I really wanted my family and I to live a life, a different kind of life that, you know, than I was living at the time.
Sure.
And I think that as a young person, it grows you, it challenges you to push harder, because you're a little bit more desperate than most people.
There's a hunger.
There's a hunger, the hunger is not besides just making money to live around now. It actually translates to the family. And I have younger sisters and younger brothers, and I have my mom and dad, and we were all really just trying to kind of get going, you know. And I felt like it was upon me, funny enough, I just took it on, and that it's upon me to try to make a difference, and because I just wasn't happy with what I was seeing. And I think that also just gives you that sense of individuality and stamina to know that I've got to push until that is going to change.
Gotcha. So why this industry for you? As in, was it always something you imagined this was where you'd manifest your ambitions?
I would say the industry found me somewhat, because, you know, through an audition in my pre-teens that allowed me to get into my first environment on set of a television commercial. I realized there was an industry like this, and there was something happening, and I think it opened my eyes to the opportunities. And of course, subsequently studying marketing communications and going to university to learn about this craft a bit more, I found a connection to it. And I think that allowed me to then do a job that I was comfortable in, and that I really like, that I'm trained for, but also that I do enjoy and that I'm actually good at. So that was quite helpful as a base. So I couldn't really start another kind of business at the time because of the fact that I just, you know, kind of springboard from
all of that,
the skill set or what I know and what I understand, and what and an industry that I've gone to love. It is a challenging industry. It is the most untransformed industry. It's scary, actually, when you think about it. It's very, very scary that there's so much to be done. And at some level, sometimes it can be quite overwhelming as a player in the space. and as a black player in this place, there's a responsibility, so there's a challenge.
I'm glad you touched that, because this is something I'm curious about, and it relates to you as let's use you as the microcosm of looking at the sector. There are many and countless examples of young, excellent people of color who've gone into this business with great skill, great pomp, great momentum initially, who've been decimated and surrendered and tapped out to, like, I'll be just the background guy, etc. And one has to wonder, like, should we judge them harshly? Or are those the realities of this space? And if it is, what makes you, or what is your game plan to stay the long haul?
That's a big question, because as a young graduate, I looked up to some incredible leaders in this space, people that are my elders.
Yes.
Black, incredible professionals in advertising.
Yeah.
And they inspired me to get into this industry. You know, Nkwenkwe Ngomo, for an example.
Jeez.
You know, an icon.
Yeah.
Happy Njengela, an icon. Nunu
Pioneers.
Njengela, pioneers.
Yeah.
And there are incredible sentiments that go to... When I think about that, actually, I become quite emotional, because I know that I probably wouldn't have stayed in this industry without them as a beacon for me, or as a lighthouse in terms of what they have been able to do.
Yeah.
People like Peter Vundla, who pioneered one of the most exciting agencies, Ad Boys, in South Africa. And it said to me, it's possible and it can be done. But over time, something happens. And when I look back, you know, over the last 18, 20 years, the shift has, you know, hasn't really necessarily improved.
Yeah.
If anything, we're losing incredible minds in the industry to corporates. And I think what happens generally is that over time, it gets a bit much, I think. Yeah. And I always have this internal fear, you know, that says, I don't want to be one of those people that also, you know, gets consumed by this industry to a point that I then have to leave it behind to go work for another corporate. Because I have almost given it my all in the industry as a whole. So there is a responsibility. I don't have the answers for it. I'm looking at how do I navigate this myself?
Got you.
And now, 8 years in, it's become even more real, because this is the time when you are looking at it and thinking, geez, you know, we work so hard, but yet, you know, what we are getting out of it is not necessarily to what we think we should be getting. You know, I have to contend with a lot of challenges in the industry to stay relevant, to stay open, and to keep this going.
One of the great things about your business is I suppose an extension of how you are, is that you're not a threat. People don't look at you like, oh gosh, here comes another suit to take over, you know? And yet at the same time, you seem to navigate quite comfortably between a myriad of very different brands and different landscapes. Is that a part of your identity as a offering as DNA? Is that what goes into the difference of your business?
Yes, absolutely it is. I remember even just jotting down the very first idea around what DNA is going to become. There was a clarity, particularly then, of being able to co-create some good solutions for brands. And I think what was clear for me was that there was an opportunity for like an integration of services in a way that would be comfortable with the client and their agency, both their above the line or below the line agency, to make the work better. And also, if we're honest, the industry as a whole is under threat. Is under threat.
Changes.
So we need to, as an industry, be able to figure out a way that is going to ensure that there's very strong sustainability of our businesses in a way that answers to what the future need of brands are going to be. And I think perhaps I was a little bit ahead of the time.
Good for you.
Good for me, I guess. Because I could walk into the big agencies comfortably and would collaborate and do some good work that would lead to good results.
Sure.
And I think that's probably why, like you say, I'm not a threat. Because it's about co-creating and coming up with some good work.
Sure. I'm curious about what great learnings have emerged for you, not only about the sector, but just as a business owner. What great insights are available to derive on what has worked, what is good practice, what is profitable in our economy?
Sure. There is a lot that I've learned, lots of great insights, but obviously they're all pretty much dependent on the context that you work within at the time, right? The one key thing that I struggled with, in fact, initially, was, you know, when you read a book that tells you about this is leadership, this is what it's about, these are the key elements, and then you listen to an interview of someone you admire telling you that, you know, you don't have to be emotional in business. Business is about being hard. And you meet an accountant who says, oh no, but why are you spending money on having muesli and breakfast and things for your team, you know? So the one key fundamental learning for me was you got to scope your approach. You got to scope your approach. You cannot copy and paste an approach. And you cannot copy and paste a leadership style. You cannot copy and paste a company culture. You have to create it, and you have to look at what is true to you as a leader, to the environment that you're in, the people that you work with, that determines then what happens. Because I found that sometimes I've tried it, where I get an amazing insight, what seems like an amazing insight from a book or from a mentor, and yet it actually does the converse, the complete opposite of what I wanted it to do in this environment. You know, so the ability to find ways that are uniquely yours as an entrepreneur, I think is fundamental. Notwithstanding the fact that there are basic lessons that you can get, but the holistic solution and the ultimate approach has to be something that you as an entrepreneur put a mark on it, you know, put a stamp on it,
100%.
and make it happen. Especially in our industry, because our industry, we sell product. Our product is creativity, ideas, solutions, experiences, and ultimately, it's so easy to look like another agency. It's so easy to feel like another agency, right? Because you can almost copy what other people are doing and bring that in. But I found that, the importance of being able to weave your own story and weave your own approach is something that's important. And it's actually the most challenging as well. Because it's so much easier to just look at another company and follow the process or copy a system.
And be a Me Too business.
And be a Me Too business with a different logo, different ideas here and there. But ultimately, you know, you are not going to be a very unique business. And I have to say, I also remember having an interview with Ashraf in the very initial stages of DNA. And he asked me, but what makes your company different to any other agency? Because every agency talks about the product is number one. You know, it's about creativity, about everything else. We're all the same, you know? And I must say, I actually really went home and reflected very deeply about that. And I thought, but what about this business is different? And I struggled with articulating it. I felt it and I knew it within me intuitively what I think this needs to be. But to articulate it in a way that makes sense to a journalist, for example, was difficult. And I think that is testament to the hard work that needs to happen when you're building a business. You have to be able to go to those places that no one has been, and you have to question yourself a lot more.
What's in the near future of what you're reaching for this year?
Sure.
I see offices are expanding.
Offices are expanding.
The footprint's bigger.
We're very blessed, yes. The footprint is getting bigger. And you know what's interesting is that when I drive into Sandton right now, and so you just look up and you see Discovery, Robert Winslow, Barlow World,
It's the new capital.
Incredible businesses. So I think in a funny way, I see myself as such a youngster in this space, right? Because, if you look at the likes of World, a business that's 118 years this year, look at the likes of Discovery,
Institutions.
I mean, these are institutions. So I think on the one hand, I'm humbled because I always feel like there's a lot to look up to,
yes,
and there's a time frame that will need to manifest,
yes,
to get to a particular space and understanding of that. So on the one hand, I'm very aware of the fact that there's a lot to learn and there's a lot to do to be able to get to that kind of space. And then on the other hand, it's also about what's happening today.
Yes.
You would think that 20 years in, 25 years into our democracy, the industry where it sits right now, you would assume that it's a lot easier to move around in this new dispensation, right? And boy, have I been surprised.
I laugh, but I'm really like, oh, please say it isn't so. Yeah.
It is difficult. It's challenging. But it's exciting.
Good.
Because we have an opportunity to chart an interesting path. And I think when I think about this business, it's hard to think about it, in 50 years' time, right? Because I know what I need to do today.
There you go.
And I know what I need to do now in order for us to be able to be open for another year, another 2 years, another 5, another 10, another 20, and so on and so forth. Because it is the small things we do now. It is what we focus on as a business now that will determine how we then become when we are much older. So yes, maybe the past has been exciting. The last almost 8 years has been phenomenal. And I don't take that for granted. But I feel that our work actually really starts now.
That's great.
Because only now are we able to make choices and decisions that will take us to completely, and I'm talking about incremental changes that allow for us to be able to grow as a business. What's also interesting is that, when you are year 3, they think, it's a young company. Year 5, small business, young, etc. And now we're moving into the space where it's not...
No one's complimentary.
No one's saying, oh, you are young.
No.
People expect a level of delivery.
Yes.
I'm compared to the biggest agencies, the longest running agencies. Our systems and processes has to match that.
Sure.
So there's a lot to do to grow up and to ensure that we are tightening up our shoelaces so we can be able to run going forward. So your question is big. Where do we go and how do we look like? We know that at the very basic, it's about what we've been able to do best, continue to do that. And continue to sharpen what we know has worked for us. But we know we need to learn new skills. We know we need to learn new tricks.
Capacity, proficiencies, all of that.
And I think for me, that is quite exciting in that right now is that we need to be a lot more sharp in how we show up and show up as a grown agency, not just as a startup agency.
Sure.
And I think that means that our people, our operations, our systems, and also just our brand is able to make that shift.
Amazing. Sounds like there's a lot of conquest ahead for you.
A lot, yes.
It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
It's an honor. It's amazing to sit with you like this again.
Fantastic.